Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is the Edge of Liberty podcast.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Sean.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's already the 23rd of February, 2026. This is the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHI Media Network. Simulcast this evening and every evening that we're on the air by our friends over at KLIN Radio. Thank you to the subscribers. Much appreciate all of you, each and every individual one of you. Shout out to the mods for making all this possible and keeping the chat room as civil as they possibly can. I got a lot to talk about tonight. You know, when you're formatting shows, as much as sometimes things just are newsworthy, there's other things where you just don't want to cover the same things over and over again. It gets boring, right? And this is going to be one of those shows, like when I set up the show yesterday and then this morning, I was like, I am not going to talk about Gavin Newsom again. I feel like I've talked about Gavin Newsom so many times over the last year. I mean, between the articles I've written on shrmedia.com, the times that I've covered Gavin Newsom here, I said I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to take a Gavin-free night off. And then Gavin goes and makes himself newsworthy. Now, folks, I want you to watch a video. And then I'm going to play another video and I'll come back and talk. I'm going to play it one right after another. Just because I want you to understand the context of it all. So first we're going to watch this.
I'm like you. I'm no better than you. You know, I'm a 960 SAT guy. And, you know, and I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech. Maybe the wrong business to be in.
Gavin, I'm not a PR guy. I don't do PR for anyone. I certainly don't run campaigns. But let me just caution you about the crowd that you're speaking in front of and the things you say. Claiming to not be a smart guy and have a low SAT score. Now, for one thing, when you're trying to run for president, not always a strong move. But when you're talking to a predominantly black crowd and you are constantly calling the other side racist and all of these things, not a very good look. Not a very good look. You can recall like Kathy Hochul turn around and remember the whole black kids can use computers too, or whatever her exact comment was. That's essentially what it is. Then you had all the Democrats right now coming out and talking about voter ID, the SAVE Act. Oh, black people aren't smart enough to get an ID. That's pretty much what they're saying over and over again. And then Newsom comes out in front of a crowd, predominantly black crowd, as he's running for president. We all know he's running. He may not be after this little speech, but he's running for president. And then to say, I'm not that smart. I have a low SAT score. I'm just like you. Woo. It reminded me of this quite a lot, actually.
Wealthy kids, black kids. Kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Yeah.
Wealthy kids, black.
Because the left does nothing but virtue signal. Look, I've talked about this with Gavin before. Gavin Newsom turns around and Gavin Newsom will be whoever he needs to be in front of a crowd in order to get elected. That's just who he is. He is the slimiest of politicians. I've said 100 times, even if you do not like Trump, you have to admit at least Trump is who he is all the time. He's always Trump. He doesn't really give a shit. He's just Trump. Whether you like his politics or not, you at least have to understand that he is who he is. Gavin is unbelievable because he's talking to this crowd, and this is what he says to them. And then all of us talking to a couple of just middle-aged white people wearing turtlenecks. He's all of a sudden a different person. Got to share it, Sean. There we go. First day, obviously, podcasting. It's not like I haven't done this 1,000 times. There it is.
You've written a hell of a book, and I don't say that lightly. I went through it in a quick hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And trust me, I don't read very fast, but it reads at an unbelievable pace. It's so well written. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's so familiar because I felt a little bit adjacent to so much of the subject matter, but it's 18 chapters. It's an impressive piece of work.
Well, this is Gavin talking to two white book authors, book writers, and all of a sudden he's a speed reader, right? He just blasted right through that. And then he put out after the whole he's been hiding behind this dyslexia he claims to have, and I don't know, he might actually have it, but the simple fact of the matter is, when you were going to start making claims as you were running for a national office of, I have dyslexia, I have a stutter, like Biden did, you gotta at least do something to help, I don't know, convince people, especially after all of the bullshit that you said over the years. And I'm not done with Gavin, but I want to jump over to his little spokesperson, Izzy Garden. So Izzy is a state taxpayer paid PR person for Governor Newsom's office. His job is to do PR. His job is to communicate, say, with the press, other people. That is what his job is. And it's funny because whenever something was even considered slightly rude, the mainstream media would go batshit crazy about it. And how, out of the Trump administration, you can't say that, it's rude. You can't do this, it's rude. You can't do that, it's rude. And then you have Newsom's people talking like this to a legitimate reporter, and I'm going to pull it up here. I have it somewhere. It's all the way down the bottom, probably. Here it is. Susan Crabtree. Now, if you don't know who Susan Crabtree is, Susan Crabtree writes for RC Politics. She contributes to the California Post, which is obviously the New York Post. She's been around for a long time. She is a reporter. I am not a reporter. I say that all the time. I'm a commenter. I'm an opinion person. She does actual reporting, and she does in-depth investigative reporting. So she sends out an email, and it's a pretty decent email that says this. Oop. And if it's hard to read, I'll read it for you. This is to Izzy, Gavin's PR person. Hi there. I know any type of learning disability is very sensitive, but I also see Gavin Newsom and his press team have been using the diagnosis to hit back at Sean Hannity and other critics in the wake of Newsom's comment over the weekend that he has a 960 IQ. So I'm like you, which is what he said to the black moderator. Gavin Newsom has claimed that he found paperwork from his childhood about his dyslexia after his dad died in 2018. If that's the case, does he have it so he can demonstrate that he has given dyslexia diagnosis early on in his childhood? Newsom also said that he was diagnosed with dyslexia in 1972, which is when he would be about 5 or 6. Is there anything that the governor can point to prove this? She's saying, hey, look, I'm not saying he's not dyslexic, but can you put something out here? If you're going to claim to be dyslexic and you're Newsom and you're running for the office of president, you should probably substantiate it. If the early paperwork is not available, is there any evidence of a more recent dyslexia diagnosis that he can provide? I have a deadline tomorrow, Tuesday at 5 p.m., but any information you provide, I can distribute it immediately onto X to combat critics who are doubting his diagnosis. Okay, you have a media inquiry to the governor of California's office after he claimed to be dyslexic by a reporter saying, hey, look, we can squash this right now if he has the paperwork he says he has, that he's claimed he's dyslexic after he accidentally did a racism during a moderated panel. Can you present that? Izzy Garden, who was the PR person I spoke to you about earlier, replied, hey, Susan, thanks for reaching out. Respectfully, fuck off, Izzy. Now, whether you like PR, you don't like PR, whatever, simple fact of the matter is the left constantly claims to be a friend of the media. The left constantly claims to be the adults in the room. They constantly claim to be, oh, we have to be fair. We have to be balanced, blah, blah. And then you're going to say this to a reporter who's making a legitimate inquiry. And it's not a good look. So now you've called a whole race of people in this country dumb, essentially, by equating yourself to dumb. And this isn't the first time he's done that. He was on that podcast back in October, and I wrote it on shrmedia.com. And the hosts are 2 former basketball players. I can't remember the name of the podcast. I don't have it up in front of me. Where all of a sudden he got he was code switching like Kamala, right? Through the whole podcast. It's up on SHR Media. Just search Gavin, you'll see it. I was calling him Gav in the article. But this is when I tell you he is the oiliest, greasiest, worst politician, the worst type of politician there is. I'm not exaggerating, because he will be whoever he has to be in front of a room of people to get them to vote for him. I know we have a couple people in the chat room. I saw Canada Heavy Hall in the chat room. My condolences, sir. Mission Ready Men's in the chat room. O2AMT, thank you so much for being there. Mission Ready Men said, it doesn't matter. Democrats will vote for him yesterday. Yeah. Anyways, rather. Yep. 100%. I know Phantom's in chat moderating. Thank you so much for being there. So we get into this whole thing, and this, after people were pointing out, hey, Gavin did a racism, and this should probably be talked about, you had different people going to social media and saying their opinions on it. Handy was one of them. He said Gavin Newsom thinks a 960X SAT makes him like Black Americans. Let that sink in. Okay, that's a pundit thing to say. That's something I would say on social media. I'm a pundit. I'm an opinion guy. I think Gavin Newsom's a piece of garbage. I don't hide that. I don't pretend to be middle of the road on that. And Newsom's response is, you didn't give a shit about the president of the United States posting an 8 video of President Obama and calling African nations shitholes. Now stop for 1 second. He has called them shitholes, and they are in fact shitholes. And that video we've debunked on here a dozen times on SHR Media and other places. But you're going to call me racist for talking about my lifelong struggle with dyslexia. And that's when the dyslexia cry started. Oh, I'm dyslexic. And this is going to come up more and more. Every time he fucks up, he's going to claim dyslexia. And the amount of just dunking on Newsom for this has been absolutely incredible. And the memes game has been strong. And stick with me, because the whole thing just threw me for a loop. I didn't really prepare any of this other than look into this and save, because I have Iran to talk about, the bomb cyclone, Mexico. I have a whole bunch of other things to talk about, but I really need to cover this because I have to get it out of my system. So you had Governor Tate Reeves quietly just say, hey, this seems like a good time to remind you that a Black student in Mississippi is 2.5 times more likely to read proficiently by 4th grade than if he or she lived in California. We would be happy to send you coaches to assist you, Gavin Newsom. Right? So it's starting. You can see where it's going. The memes, the comments, it's just brilliant. And
I'm
of course, AI and the videos just never stop. This was
I'm
outstanding.
not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. And, and I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940.
So I thought that was pretty good. Sorry, this was going to get ready for the interview.
I'm not trying to impress you.
I thought that was pretty good, right? I'm like, okay, we're off to a good start because people are just really laying into this. And I will tell you, it just did not stop from there. And everybody was on fire. And hats off to the people who make memes. Of course, here's Gavin when he grew up differently back in the day. Let's see. Here's another good one. The quote over it says, listen, in the word of Newsom, in the voice of Newsom, listen, we aren't that different. I spent time in the vineyards picking grapes in the 80-degree heat. I'm sharing these because they made me fucking laugh. Another one said, the same picture said, I barely knew my dad either. And then I'm like you, I'm the 960 SAT guy. I can't read. And now, of course, this is all about a guy who claims to be this amazing human being and this great leader and how he loves the country. Meanwhile, he pardoned an illegal alien who was convicted of attempted murder. A person by the name of Sumbum Faymani lost his green card following his conviction for attempted murder and assault with a firearm, and Newsom pardoned him. So that's, before you start feeling bad for Gavin Newsom, that's the piece of shit that he is. Never mind the fires, never mind all the other things. He's a piece of garbage. Let's see. Here's another great one.
It was never easy
Benny Johnson put this out tonight as well.
for me. I was born a poor black child.
Credit to Benny for that one. So everyone's nuking Newsom right now, and rightfully so. Like I said, the man deserves it. He deserves everything that he's getting. It's Newsom 101. However, something that got vastly overlooked and something that the Democrats don't talk about often, and I don't think this was an accidental, I'm going to say this and then I'm really not trying to hurt feelings. I'm just trying to show solidarity. No, I think this was an intentional jab, and a lot of people are overlooking this one. Look at what he said about who started Kamala's career.
In the book, I briefly described, I am here because of my parents, but I'm also here in political terms because of one extraordinary human being.
Willie Brown.
Willie Brown. And for those that don't know Willie Brown, you wouldn't know Kamala Harris without Willie Brown.
You know, I look, if you don't know the Willie Brown story, Willie Brown was the older mayor of San Francisco who Kamala was seen cohorting with on a regular basis when she was just a young college student and eventually law student. And then he started her career. He handpicked her into a lot of places. He helped Gavin out too, because Willie was connected and politically, and so wasn't Gavin. But there's also numerous stories that Willie and Kamala were intimate several times. And he just kind of threw it. And a lot of people know the story. He just kind of threw her under the bus for saying, hey, she pretty much started her career by banging Willie, which is absolutely incredible. Oh, man. So that's going on. You have all the memes, which is just, it's my favorite. The memes, I'll tell you, nothing makes a situation better than memes. Memes just help everything. There was one more I wanted to point out before I left. Oh, yes. Oh, this is another good video of Gavin when he was young, with his box of Newport clothing, which is just, who thinks of this shit? I was talking to somebody today and I said, part of the things that make memes absolutely fucking hysterical to me, and they are, is the fact that somebody can take a situation and then actually take the time and effort to think and be funny enough to go, I know how to make this even better. I'm going to put cornrows on Gavin's head and put him in a Newport outfit. And yet, Don in the chat, yes, I 100% know the Democrats, just like Big E said earlier, they're going to vote for him no matter what. I don't think they're going to actually vote for him. I think they're going to vote for Kamala over him. But I can't wait to see the primaries. And then also for
Breon, say it with me.
The party of peace and tolerance. And by the way, the person I'm about to show you has been accused publicly, not charged. There's a big difference. So I'm not going to say she's a domestic batterer, but she has been accused by her ex-husband of domestic battery, however, not charged. That would be the woman running for president, running for governor, rather, named Katie Porter, aka Mashed Potatoes. This was her at the California Democratic Party. And again, when I tell you all the time that all they have on the left is Orange Man bad, fuck Donald Trump, that's all they can do, right? They throw out all of these statements that have absolutely no factual basis from it, but they say it because it makes them feel good, because they're emotionally unable to come up with anything intelligent. That's the problem. They're so emotionally overcharged that they can't think of anything intelligent, so they just yell out the things that they see on social media. And here's another one doing that. This is Katie Porter, who's absolutely slacking in numbers, so now she needs to charge things up and try to get the progressives on her side.
Simple, powerful message that we can all agree on. Say it with me. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
That was her big talking point. By the way, I mean, yeah, if she got elected, she's not going to get elected. But if she did get elected, he would be president for 2 more years. I get that. But she's not actually campaigning against him, right? But this is all the left has when they're hurting in polls. Orange Man bad, because at least I know I can rally my emotionally frail and fragile base. The people who have no critical thinking skills, just emotional reactions. They're feral. They're unable to control themselves. They're unable to think clearly. They don't want to have, and they're smooth-brained. Most of them are absolutely smooth-brained. So that was Katie Porter, and
entered the perimeter
at day earlier, and this is from Fox News, but this happened.
Shot and killed an armed man who unlawfully entered the perimeter at Mar-a-Lago early this morning, at 1:30 this morning. The Associated Press is out with some new details right now. They have named, and we have confirmed the name of the suspect, 21-year-old Austin Tucker Martin. According to the Associated Press in this bulletin that just crossed, he was reported missing by his family.
So you have yet another situation where somebody was attempting to murder the president, and the left is okay with that. The left is absolutely okay with that. They've encouraged this. Everybody knows that. It's not been a shock in many of them. And look, I played, Wednesday night, I played social media with a couple other people who are outwardly calling for the assassination of the U.S. president, right? This is what we're dealing with. They don't love violence, but they love to commit violence. It's the craziest thing in the world. And it's only going to get worse. And they'll never be held accountable for their own rhetoric, which is incredible. And look, this doesn't even, I didn't even get to touch on Cam Higbee and the donations to protesters from the California government, or the donations. It wasn't donations. It was paid directly to the organization's Churliss in California. I was going to talk about that. I didn't even have time. It fell way down the California list because I didn't want to talk about California tonight. I'm going to switch gears for the break. I'm going to take a break in about 6 minutes. I'm going to talk about Iran because the whole world is waiting to see what's going to happen with Iran. Earlier today, on the 23rd, you had the U.S. government order the evacuation of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, probably for fear of retaliation. They called it a precautionary measure and expected regional developments. In radio terms, this is what we call the canary in the coal mine. The Geneva talks have been going on. They have not been successful. They've been called a nothing burger from people on the inside. And the deadline's been set for the end of February, which is quickly approaching. Talked about the buildup last Wednesday, the 2 strike carrier groups that are in the region, the air power that's in the region, and being called the biggest military buildup in the Middle East before 2003. Of course, the protests are still going on. Allegedly, a text message went out to everybody in Iran, or at least a lot of people in Iran, who warning them that help is on the way. And it was a mass text message. And look, we see all the different security packages, and look, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what the plan is. We know there's a plan in place. We know the American buildup is incredible. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. We don't know what approach they're going to have. But you see all these experts. Some experts are saying, oh, they may do a snatch and grab, just like they did with Venezuela. You have other experts saying, yep, they're just going to absolutely decimate all of the military in Iran, and then turn around and hand it over to local countries closer to them to handle everything on the ground. We don't know. Nobody knows what the exact, and if they do know, there's a problem because shit's getting leaked. One of the funniest things I saw this weekend in regards to this, and obviously the situation itself is serious, but I think it was Peter Doocy who asked Secretary of War Pete Hegseth about the pizza index. Now, if you haven't been over to the Pizza Index website, it's amazing because of how accurate it's been in the past. All the pizza places are tracked in their sales around the Pentagon. And historically, when the numbers are really high, it means that there is something that's actually happened. And people actually look at the pizza index to be a solid predictor as to whether or not a military action is about to take place. And Pete Hegseth said that he might just for fun start ordering hundreds of pizzas to the Pentagon just to jack with the with the pizza index. But I'm telling you, go check out the pizza index, bookmark it if you want to track this. I don't think we have, I keep saying it's going to be any day now, and I think it is. I think they're legitimately trying to give the leadership in Iran a chance to walk out and leave. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to give up power. They're desperate. And look, you look at the expansion over the years of the, not the IRGC, but there's another one called Shani or something close to that. You'll excuse my pronunciation. I'm really white. That has been originally brought in to beat down protests in the past. And now more and more as time has progressed, that part of the IRGC is expanded greatly, to the point that they have checkpoints in every town right now, believed satellite images are showing. So it's really shows you the amount of uprisal that's been going on in Iran for the last decade, or longer. We had one just a couple of years ago where people actually thought that they were going to be able to topple it over, and then the regime just went so brutal on its citizens that they were murdering all of them. So it's interesting to me to see how it's going to go, what it's going to go, and where we're going to be, say, even a week from now, because there's a lot brewing right now in the Middle East. Look, I'm up against a break. I take 3 minutes, grab a drink of water. I suggest you do the same. We come back. We're going to get into Mexico. We're going to talk about Mandami in New York City because, the snow brings out the greatness, apparently, and all of that. Please like and subscribe. Thank you to the moderators in the chat. Thank you to the people who have subscribed and who are watching tonight. I'll be back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the SHR Media Shop. This is not just merch, it is a statement. SHR Media is built as a rebellion against the mainstream. We deliver truth without a filter or permission. When you wear our gear, you are standing for liberty and unapologetic free thought. Every piece is a badge of support for independent journalism. Wear it loud, wear it proud. Support the mission and join the rebellion at the SHR Media web store.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of every
common sense, visit shrmedia.com to discover where you can catch the Reaver in action. He is here to amplify your inner logic. He may not always be polite. He may not always be refined. But one thing is for sure. He always tells it like it is. The Reaver of Common Sense.
Ladies and gentlemen, walk back to the Edge of Liberty right in the SHR Media Network. Shout out to the U.S. men's Olympic hockey team for their amazing win in Milan. Which, I said, as a hockey fan, that game could have gone either way. Both sides played hard, and the Americans were just the better team that day. And that was the day that it mattered. You can talk about all the I've been following social media of all the Canadians who can't cope. Who just hate us anyways, but not all of them, but the ones that do. Canada Heavy Hall and I were talking offline, and we had a very hockey conversation about no, it could have went either way. Both Hellebuck was just unbelievable in net, and it was just his night. And that when you're playing hockey, your goaltender can make your entire night. People are so upset about Kash Patel being over there partying. Just stop. Just stop. You're just mad that it looks like, the administration, there are people in the administration who actually appreciate stuff like that, and they can be normal. You guys never talked about, and by the way, whenever the flight, wherever he goes anywhere, he has to take that FBI plane. That's mandated with the job. It's all built into the budget. He was having meetings over there as well. So just stop with the fake outrage because it's Kash Patel. And look, there are things about Kash that annoy me. I've shit on him on my show. Kash Patel is not my favorite FBI director, but let's just be realistic and stop hating just because of who he's attached to and let the team celebrate, for God's sakes. It's just so ridiculous to me to see that false outrage. From Italy to Mexico we go. Yesterday, the Mexican military took out, again, my pronunciations are going to suck, so I apologize, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, who's the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. The operation went down in the mountain town of Tapalpa. Hope I got that close. It was a surgical strike by Mexican special forces with significant intelligent reports, allegedly, from the U.S. government. As a result, the CJNG unleashed for lack of a better term, what they called a scorched earth response. They were sending out a reverse 911 type system. I don't know how the cartel has that, to people warning them to stay inside or get inside or be killed. They shut down roads. They blew stuff up. They burned shit like crazy. They got into additional shootouts with the National Guard, who, from some reports, say took everything from 5 to 9 hours to spool up a full response. The local police department was entirely overwhelmed. It was harrowing, to say the least. Now, if you watch some of these videos where you show cartel gunmen just strolling down the street in their trucks. And again, if you don't understand the history of the cartels in Mexico, I know the Mexican head of their version of Secretary of War, I don't know what his official name was saying, say, well, 80% of the weapons that we found on the cartel members were from the U.S. But you guys don't make guns. So, yeah. And the Mexican government, the Mexican military, has a lot of sympathetic people for the cartels and or poor guys that want to make a shitload of money by getting weapons away. The Mexican cartels were started by former members, most of them, former members of the Mexican Special Forces who were trained by the U.S. And after all of that training, turned around and said, hey, great, now we're going to start our own militias and cartels, essentially. They're a little bit of both. They own entire sections of the country that the government does not go to, that they run everything. They have their own cell phone service. They absolutely have their own cell phone service. They were sending up the reverse 911. They shut down Puerto Vallarta, one of the biggest cities and most populated cities in Mexico, where thousands upon thousands of Americans and Canadians were vacationing. They knew exactly, and they did it like that. They got that response with such little time. And now the number 2 guy has allegedly been killed. And they're worried about all the infighting with that, which at least if they're infighting, they're not killing civilians, hopefully. But the cartel has for years been the number 1 drug problem for America, right? And we know that. That's not, in other countries have as well, but a lot of the drugs get trafficked through Mexico, and a lot of the fentanyl does get made in Mexico. The Chinese send over their products and the cartel sends it north, et cetera, et cetera. For years, the Mexican government has all but turned the blind eye, where you have a situation where the cartels make more money than the government by moving dope, and allows the government to make some money off of tourism by not attacking the tourist areas on a regular basis. It still has happened. If you actually read the news that isn't in this country, because our media sucks by and large, cartel violence has been through the roof in Mexico for years. During the last election, there was 4 or 5 people who said that they were going to declare that were murdered by the cartel. You've had mayors who are fighting the cartels get murdered. You've had entire police departments in some cities get wiped out. There's a story out there, I can't remember her name, but she was a young gal, 21, 22, who became a cop, and everybody but her in her department was killed. It was a small department, 5, 6, 7. And she went to work in defiance, and now she's the de facto chief in this small department, and they killed her like 2 days later. The cartel has killed people in this country. Stanislaus County 2 years ago, 1 year ago, there was a cartel hit where they killed a bunch of people in a house. And that was a validated cartel hit. The cartels run Mexico. They just allow the Mexican government to operate it there. And that does spill over into how much comes into America. And it's a problem. I do feel for the Mexican citizens. I feel for the average Mexican person, because they were burning down stores, gas stations, hot dogs. They blew up the Costco, for fuck's sake. When you're blowing up $1.50 hot dogs, you're not the good guys. Sorry. The airport was overrun. You had people running out onto the tarmac for safety. And then I saw videos this morning after you had the U.S. government and other governments warning people, hey, stay inside, shelter in place, do not go out, because the cartel has a history of kidnapping people for ransom and kidnapping people for protection, and usually from other countries, because that's what they fear the most. There's a lot of Canadians down there right now. There's a lot of Americans down there right now. They may mean to grab a Canadian because it'll give them protection. The Canadian government's less likely to respond. But if they accidentally grab an American, you now have an entire different situation. And this has come from pressure from the Trump administration for the Mexican government to start dealing with the cartels. And that's something that, again, this administration does not get credit for. The Trump administration has been pressuring them so much so that we've had some boots on the ground. We've had some equipment in there. Our intelligence sharing has gone through the roof. And we have offered drones and targeting abilities that probably led, and again, you and I aren't in the room, so we don't know for sure, but most likely led to this operation that took out El Mencho. And the cartel knows that. They know since Trump started pressuring the Mexican government that the Mexican government has been so much more proactive with the cartels. The cartels need to go. And look, if you're a screaming leftist liberal, you can be the most leftist lunatic in the world, but the cartels kill Mexicans every single day. You would think that you'd want them out. Now, some people, the Mexican government is saying that the due process for these cartel members who are killing people has to be met, which is absolutely hysterical. Yes, try to arrest them, but as soon as they fight with you, you obviously have to take action, but it just goes to show you the mindset of that is a terrorist organization operating freely in large parts of your country. And you're doing stuff because you're getting forced to, and then you're going to turn around and try to 80% of the equipment was Americans. Yeah, Fast and the Furious. Sure. I'm sure occasionally some guns go south, probably not as much as they used to because the border's pretty tight right now. But you also have to look, I'm telling you right now, I don't think that we're gun walking M249s down there. You see the cartels who post their videos in their full tactical gear and their trucks and everything. I don't think we're gun walking those down there with the grenade launches. I don't think we're gun walking. Those are coming internally or from other countries in South America. Right. So the problem is unbelievably huge. It needs to be dealt with. They should be taking out the head of every single cartel member right now. That's what they should be doing. Go and try to arrest them if they resist, then you got to do what you got to do. But watching these videos, I saw a video this morning that some Canadian reporter put up there, and he's down there, and it's like, oh, things have been really tough in Puerto Vallarta, but some people are on the roof of this condominium complex playing tennis. And I responded, I was like, that is the survival instinct of potato salad in the sun. Like, how stupid do you have to be for an organization who regularly kidnaps foreigners, and you're being told to shelter in place, and you've seen them burn down half your city, block roads, take over the airport for a little bit, all that other shit, and you're going to be playing tennis on the roof? And then on top of it all, as the reporter, not only are they playing tennis on the roof, you're putting it on social media where the building can be identified. No fucking survival instinct whatsoever. You should be off the street because, as we all know, the odds of anyone in that hotel who will protect you being armed is slim to none. And if a whole bunch of armed people walk through the doors, they're not going to fucking do anything to stop them. And I don't blame them. So if you're down there and if this gets to you, don't be fucking stupid. Keep yourself alive. We don't want to see anyone get hurt, but they're out there trying to hurt people. And if they get scared and if they get cornered and start grabbing bodies off the street, or even worse, if all of a sudden they want to prove a point because after years of letting the Mexican government make money off of tourism, they're finally starting to fight back against the cartel. And if the cartel says, you know what, we're going to ruin tourism down here because we're still going to fucking make money. And the less money you have, the less you have to fight us with. And they go and do a Mumbai style attack on those condominiums and those hotels. You now have way more bodies to deal with, and it all could be avoided. But if you're down there vacation, you're as white as I am or whiter, fucking stay indoors. Don't give them a reason. And also, if you care about the Mexicans that are working in your hotel, working in your resort, working in your condominium, don't be a reason to bring problems in for them to deal with as well. It is a war zone down there. I was watching a woman today who's been covering this for a long time, and I wish I saved the clip. I didn't. That's on me. It's on X. I've seen it on TikTok. I've seen it on YouTube, where she said, this is what the cartels do when they launch a big operation. They have a big first day, then they have a couple days off, and they let people get back to normal. And then they come through and they hit them hard again because they know after keeping them in the house for 72 hours or longer, that once they get out in the street, they're going to have all of their guard down and everybody's going to come out at once. And then they start sending messages. So it's tragic. Something needs to be done with it. This is the Mexican government's fault, unfortunately, for letting it go this far. What do I have? 14 minutes left. Jim Snow 2.0. So first and foremost, if you're in the Northeast and you're dealing with the snow right now, I hope you're okay. I know it's rough down there. I have family who don't have power and they're dealing with it. Blizzard level conditions we're seeing in Boston and other places. It was a rough one, and they've had a pretty snowy winter in the Northeast. But that's not the story in of itself. Well, it is. It's a big story, but you had Zohan Mondami, who took an absolute beating after the last snowstorm for not being able to clear the snow, said, hey, if you sign up with the city, we're going to pay you $19.14 an hour to go out and clear bus stops and hydrants. And everyone went, hey, that's great. And then the irony bomb just happens to fall all over the place. You remember the SAVE Act? Remember how we were told that women, people of color, or more urban people, if you will, that's pretty much their terminology, not mine, we're going to not be able to vote because they're not smart enough to keep their social security card, their birth certificate. They can't register with all the stuff that they need. And it's a poll tax. Well, the city of New York required 2 forms of identification in order to sign up for this job, which, at least they're adhering to the immigration rules and double checking who's authorized to work. You need 2 original forms of ID, a social security card, and then 2 1.5-inch square photos for your little ID that they give you. It's incredible to me that you have the massive left, and Mondami, I covered it the other week. He's just fallen all over himself. That guy is stepping on his dick more than anybody else in politics outside of Gavin Newsom, who is like doing a tap dance on his own dick. But then you're going to turn around, and after you've been arguing against the SAVE Act for the last 2 weeks, you're going to turn around and say, by the way, if you need to work for us, you kind of have to have this ID on you. Or you won't be able to work for us. Oh, man. It's incredible to me that the hypocrisy and the claims from the left about you need an ID or you just can't get an ID. Nobody can ever get an ID. IDs are so hard to get. You had Bernie Sanders this week being asked about his birth certificate. He said, I don't know how to get a birth certificate. Do you? And the reporter was like, yeah, it's common knowledge to get a birth certificate. It's not that hard to get a birth certificate. Well, I don't know. Well, he was the mayor of a city for a small city for a long time. And most cities, you get your birth certificate in City Hall. You either send in for it, or you walk in and you ask for it and they ask you some information, you get it. But he's not smart enough to know how to get his birth certificate, which brings me to the point of the left keeps electing these people who clearly are not intelligent, as we saw in Gavin Newsom, are unable to take care of themselves because Bernie Sanders can't get a photo ID. The list goes on and on and on. And it makes me wonder how to choose who, like we did with Hillary and then we did with Kamala. But don't worry, once they get in office, was pretty fucking horrible. And she just wasn't prepared, sir. And she fumbled all over it. So naturally, Cheyenne, like this is a weird one.
If you think that I don't understand foreign policy because out of hours,
so she wasn't asked about enough. Not even be smart enough to have a canned answer ready or be able to think on your feet and at least give a politician's answer. It says a lot about who you are. New York Times, I haven't read this. This got released this morning. But I thought this was a bizarre headline too. And maybe this is rage baiting. The Epstein files should never have been released. And this, just take that in for a second. That's a headline over for an opinion piece over at the New York Times. And it makes me laugh because if you want to attack how they were rolled out, yeah, I have my issues with it. And I've talked about it on the show. It wasn't done right. Okay. There's been a bunch of things that wasn't done right in previous administrations as well. And then I talked about how people just want to look at numbers of how many people emailed him, well, or how many times was he mentioned, or this or that, and they don't actually get into it. For them to turn around and all of a sudden be like, oh, we shouldn't have released him, is the stupidest fucking thing in the world. Also in the media being absolute morons. The Huffington Post, who is not doing well as an organization, hasn't been for a long time, they released an article in which they said something to the effect of, if it makes you feel yucky to see all this patriotism on display, and this was after the men's ice hockey win, you're not alone. And then they went on to shit on the country like Democrats always do, because they can't be proud of this country no matter what happens, no matter what they say, unless we are a communist socialist utopia, which is not a utopia. It's a shithole. That's their goal. That's what they want. And they say it more and more now. They're more honest about it, but that is exactly what they want. And they got fucking roasted. Just go over to the original post. It was, I think it was put out Sunday over at HuffPo, and just watch how fucking roasted they got. And I get it. Somebody said, oh, it's rage bait. It's just trying to get them clicks. They're to the point now where they're hurting so bad for readership that they have to put out this rage bait. And my answer is, like it has been with a lot of media organizations, just turn around and start being honest. Don't be completely one-sided all the time. And then maybe you might do better off. It's just common sense, or it should be common sense at this point. And the other thing is, was it Alicia Liu, Ashley Liu? I can't remember the gal's name, the figure skater who's unbelievable. People were mad on social media this weekend that conservatives were not shitting on her for getting a gold medal. She's woke. Doesn't everyone know she's woke? Why aren't you shitting all over her? You guys must be so mad. But no, we're not. Not one conservative that I know, and I know a lot, was at all upset. We were actually proud of her. Proud of her for going out and competing her ass off and doing one hell of a job. And she didn't have to make it about politics. She made it about ice skating. Her father survived Tiananmen Square and then escaped the country. And the Canadians, I mean, the Chinese, Canadians, really kind of the same thing lately, were offering her money to come back, which is why that other commie lover went back and was on the Chinese team, which shouldn't be allowed. Look, I don't care about the Olympics rules all that much. There's a couple things that I think you should live by, which is, first of all, mention beating up women in boxing. I think that's kind of an important one. The other thing, too, is you shouldn't be paying people from another country to come skate for yours because you suck so bad at it. It's just kind of a thing that I have where it's supposed to be country versus country versus country. And then you're going over and you're getting an American figure skater who couldn't make it onto the American team, and you're paying her to compete for you. Just not a real good fucking look. And then finally, I wasn't sure if I was going to share this story, but it's back to Canada, because Canada's just a hot mess lately. And sorry, Canada Heavy Haul. I know you're not part of the problem, but you have to deal with it. A funeral for one of the victims of the Tumbler Ridge shooting had to cancel the funeral over threats against the family. The Post-Millennial and I don't want to read their whole article because I want you to go to their site and read it. They don't pay me whatever, but I just don't like to hijack other people's shit. And the father revealed, direct threats are made to our family's safety by a very dangerous person. We cannot risk any further endangerment to this community. And they had to cancel it. Imagine your daughter gets murdered and then you have to cancel your funeral. And unfortunately, we live in a time where people feel emboldened to do such things. And people don't know how to leave other people alone. And they demand everybody think and do what they say, or they get violent, which seems to be the left's calling card more and more lately. And I don't know how they walk back from it as an ideology. They got to figure a way out of it, because I'll tell you right now, it's why they're polling lower than herpes, and they are. And that's just the numbers that they will tell you about. That's not even the numbers that are being hidden, which are plenty. Folks, that's going to be it for me tonight. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'll be back Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. But it's not just me on SHR Media. Oh, no. Every Monday and Friday. He was sick tonight. Hopefully he's feeling better. The Reaver of Common Sense, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. Tuesday and Thursdays, noon East, 9 a.m. Pacific. Mission Ready Men with my pal Big E. Tuesday and Thursday nights. BZ's Berserk, Bobcat Saloon right here on SHR Media. Hopefully the Lost Wanderer starts to come back to us soon. He's been on a hiatus as well. Please check out our friends at KLRN Radio who have simulcast this show, and we greatly appreciate their friendship. SHR Media Shop. Let me put it up there because, you know, I have to be gratuitous, right? I mean, I have to at least. There it is. 250 reasons to read source documents. I highly recommend people read source documents and not believe what somebody else told you about a document. It will open your eyes up to the reality of the world. You go to shrmedia.com. You'll see that shirt right under the banner. You can click it. It'll bring you to the shop. We have that. Mugs, t-shirts for all of our shows, including mine, The Edge of Liberty. And they're made in America. They're handmade. It's all American, baby. And we're really proud to partner with our friends over at Seven Armors, who is making that for us. So we're not doing what's a t-shirt press or any of those other sites. No, we actually have a partner who hand makes these for you. They're high quality shirts. They're great shirts. They're super soft. They're super comfortable, and you should check them out. That's it for me. I will see you Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific. I hope you have a great rest of your night.